Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
The key was in my hand, but the lock no longer belonged to it. I stood on the front porch staring at a door that had opened for me every day for almost 30 years. The wood grain, the brass handle, the small scratch near the frame where my son had once slammed it with his bicycle handlebars. Every inch of it was familiar, but the key wouldn't turn. I tried again, slower this time, carefully. The way you do when you think the mistake must somehow be yours. The deadbolt didn't move, the handle didn't budge. I stepped back. The porch looked different. A brand new welcome mat lay beneath my feet. The shutters had been repainted a dark navy blue, a color I had never chosen. And above the doorframe, a small security camera blinked with a faint red light. I had never installed a camera. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to check the screen to know who was calling. I let it ring. My name is Arthur Bennett, and I'm 69 years old. For 40 years, I worked as a forensic accountant in Boulder, Colorado, investigating financial irregularities for corporations and law firms. My job was simple. Follow the numbers, follow the documents, and eventually the truth would appear. Paper trails don't lie. People do. Unfortunately, the most painful paper trail I ever uncovered didn't belong to a client. It belonged to my own son. My son Lucas Bennett is 41. He sells luxury real estate in Denver, and he's very good at it. Lucas has the kind of smile that convinces strangers they can trust him within minutes. He knows how to make people feel comfortable, understood, valued. That's a powerful skill in sales, and an even more powerful weapon in manipulation. For a long time, I believed Lucas had inherited the best parts of both his parents. I was wrong. My wife Helen died 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. From diagnosis to the end, we had 8 weeks. 8 weeks to process 42 years of marriage coming to an end. After she passed, the house felt like an empty cathedral. Every room echoed with memories. Every corner reminded me of the life we had built together. Lucas was attentive during that time. He visited often. He brought his wife Emily and their son, Noah, who was 6 then. The sound of Noah's laughter helped fill the quiet spaces Helen had left behind. For a while, I believed we were doing what families are supposed to do after tragedy, pulling closer, supporting each other. But about a year later, Lucas began talking about the house. At first, it sounded like concern. "Dad, this place is huge for one person." Another week, he mentioned how property taxes in the area had skyrocketed. Then came an article about retirement communities. Then a story about someone his friend knew who slipped on ice and broke a hip. Every conversation ended the same way. "You should start thinking about the future." I told him I was thinking about the future, and my future involved staying exactly where I was. The house Helen and I bought for $210,000 in the late 90s had appreciated dramatically. The neighborhood had become one of the most desirable areas outside Denver. The latest estimate valued it at over $3.8 million. Lucas knew that number, but the house wasn't just money. It was my life. Still, Lucas kept circling the topic, patient, persistent. And while he was talking about selling the house, he was quietly working on something else entirely. I discovered it by accident. One afternoon, I was reviewing paperwork when I noticed a document Lucas had asked me to sign months earlier. He'd said it was routine estate planning paperwork, something his accountant recommended. At the time, I skimmed it and signed. He was my son. I trusted him. But reading it again carefully, I realized something was wrong. The document granted Lucas financial authorization far beyond what he had described. It wasn't a full power of attorney, but it was dangerously close, and buried deep in the legal language were provisions allowing him to act on my behalf regarding major assets, including property. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the document for a long time. When someone you love betrays you, the first feeling isn't anger, it's clarity. Suddenly, every conversation from the past year rearranges itself in your memory. Every suggestion, every moment of concern, every gentle push towards selling the house. I didn't call Lucas, I called my lawyer. Marina Delgado had handled my legal affairs for more than 20 years. She was calm, methodical, and extremely difficult to fool. Exactly what I needed. When she finished reading the document, she leaned back in her chair. "This is serious," she said. "Is it illegal?" "Not yet," she replied. "But it could become illegal very quickly. What should I do?" She didn't hesitate. "Nothing. I frowned. Nothing? Act like you don't know. Over the next 4 months, we quietly prepared. Marina helped me revoke the authorization Lucas believed he still had. We replaced it with a document that looked nearly identical, but gave him zero authority. Then we went further. 3 weeks later, the house was transferred into a family trust. On paper, I no longer personally owned the property. Lucas didn't know that. We also installed a professional security system with cameras covering every entrance. When Lucas noticed them, I told him a house down the street had been burglarized. He said that was smart. He had no idea how right he was. Then Marina called one morning with new information. Lucas had met with a real estate lawyer. Paperwork was being prepared to transfer my house. Using the authorization he thought he still had. The trap was already closing. How long? I asked. Weeks, she said. Good, I replied. A month later, I told Lucas I was visiting a friend in Portland, Maine. He thought I'd be gone for a week. 3 days into the trip, Marina called. They tried it today. Lucas had arrived at the house with a locksmith and a colleague. They changed the locks. Then they attempted to file the transfer documents. The filing failed immediately. The title they were using no longer existed. The trust had already replaced it. Legally speaking, they had just attempted to transfer a property they had no authority over. I flew home the next morning, which is how I ended up standing on my porch, looking at a door my key could no longer open. My phone buzzed again. Lucas calling. I sent Marina a message. File everything. Then I walked around to the back door. The lock Lucas had forgotten. Inside, I made a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. 40 minutes later, Lucas walked through the front door. He stopped when he saw me. For the first time in his life, he looked genuinely shocked. Dad, I pointed to the chair across from me. Sit. He sat. I slid a thick folder across the table. Inside were the documents, the revoked authorization, the trust paperwork, security camera stills showing him changing the locks. Lucas flipped through the pages slowly, his face drained of color. You set me up. I shook my head. No, Lucas. I protected myself. Silence filled the kitchen. Finally, he spoke again. I just thought... I know what you thought, I interrupted. You thought grief made me weak. I leaned forward. You thought I was an old man sitting in a big house worth nearly $4 million, and you convinced yourself it should be yours. He didn't answer. The legal case lasted 14 months. Lucas pleaded guilty to fraud-related charges. He avoided prison but received heavy fines, probation, and a permanent criminal record. His wife filed for divorce the following year. Their son Noah still visits me every other weekend. Last spring, we planted a new maple tree in the backyard. The old one Helen planted when he was born now towers above the fence. The house is still mine. The locks have been changed again. My locks, my key.